All right. Welcome. Hello, Big Blue World. I'm Britt Boles, and I wanted to invite you to another episode of Blue Biographies. This is episode number 8 with Bernadette Puleo. Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for being here. So, just a little bit, if you're new to this group or you're new to Blue Biographies, this is a seed to story project. And what that means is I'm asking folks all around the globe to share their personal journeys with indigo growing. So today I'm really honored to have a friend and guest here and just a little bit about how we met. So I've had the pleasure of meeting Bernadette in person. It was 2 springs ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 springs ago, we attended a conference called the North American Indigo Project, which was put on by Slow Fiber Studios and hosted a panel of really amazing indigo farmers, teachers, artists, all in one place. And we were able to learn from them. Among them was Michelle Garcia, Sarah Bellos of Stony Creek Colors, Graham Keegan was there, Rebecca Burgess of Fibershed. Who am I missing? Oh, Craig
Roland,
Wilkinson of Fibershed.
Roland Ricketts.
Roland Ricketts was there. It was a really amazing, so many others and so many people who helped make the event happen. It was really wonderful to gather and learn from people and to meet you because Bernadette, we met here virtually first, right? And so we were able to meet in person along with a crew of other people from this group, which was really exciting for me to be able to connect with you in person after we've shared so much here. So thank you for sharing in this group. I'm really excited for everyone to learn more about you, for myself to learn more about you. Let's start with just who you are, where you live. Tell us a little bit about the indigo that you grow and your journey with indigo.
Okay, well, I live on Long Island in New York, which you'll probably figure out after I talk enough. And I've been growing indigo. Oh, just first of all, I am just retired at the end of January. I was a designer for infant accessories. We design all kinds of little cute things for photo ops and booties and hats and all bibs and all that kind of stuff. So I'm now not doing that anymore, but it was fun while it lasted. And I commuted to Manhattan every day from Long Island, so that took a lot of my time. So now that I'm retired, I'm growing Persicaria tinctoria, which used to be called Polygonum tinctorium, but now they changed the name. I started in 2002, a small little piece of land. I am very fortunate that I live on 7 acres of land, and most of it's wooded, and but there is little spots that are cleared out. And at the time, I did. My husband rototilled a piece of land that I could plant. And how it started was I used to get Fiber Arts magazine, and in the back of it, I'm a Fiber Art wannabe still, and in the back was a little classified ad for indigo seeds. Elizabeth Merrill, who was mentioned in one of the previous interviews, and I was like, oh, gee, maybe I'll just get some seeds, cheap enough, $8 or whatever. And so I got seeds and I planted, and that's my funny. I gotta tell my funny story right off the bat. So I planted them. I got them going. I used to start them in my basement. I didn't know what I was doing. So I planted them, and then the day that I harvest, and the Elizabeth Merrill's seeds came with instructions, Rita Buchanan's instructions, which was a hydrox vat for fresh leaves. And that's all I knew. That was the recipe, and that's what I knew, and that's what I thought. So I was harvesting, and I needed the 5-gallon buckets, to pour back and forth to aerate. And I didn't have any buckets So I went to Home Depot. Well, lo and behold, I didn't have any cloth either. I'm
Okay.
always like prepared, you know? And so so I said, oh, there's cheesecloth in the paint department where I had to get the buckets. So I said, oh, well, it's cotton. I guess that might work. So I ended up buying a bunch of cheesecloth, and that's what I dyed on my first dye. And
I
I
love
ended
it.
up, I'll have to, I'll show everybody later what I ended up doing with it, but I still have plenty of it. And it's a great, wonderful fabric to play with, you know, in art and, you know, embedding it into paper and, you know, all sorts of things. So,
I love that. I love that. Yeah,
yeah,
it's such a use what you have, you know?
exactly. Or what you don't have, you have to be
Sure.
improvise.
Improvise. That's so wonderful. So now, I posted a few pictures. Will you tell us a little bit about like your process now when you're cultivating, kind of your seed to cultivation rhythm? What has it been this year?
Well, okay, so you know, I did that for 2 years and it became too shady. So then I had this huge gap. So in 2016, we had a water main break and we had to put a whole new water main in the front. And that's where it's mostly clear and sunny. There's no
Mm.
trees. So that kind of gave me the opportunity to start with indigo again. And I knew about Roland Ricketts because I interviewed him back in 2008 when I did my thesis for my undergrad, which I went back to school like really late to get my undergrad, and I did a children's book on indigo. And
You
so
did?
I did. And
Okay.
back when they called it polygonum, so now I have to change the whole thing. But anyway,
Oh,
and I'll show you a picture. But
okay.
so like I struggled because I was commuting back and forth and my time was very limited. So last year it was really a struggle because the seasons seem to be changing. The springs have been very cool. This year not so much, but the last few years they were very cool. So I would start them indoors, but then as Iris said last week, if you start them too early, they get too leggy and you
Mm,
end up, you know, with these long strings of a, you know, of a stem, and it doesn't really know where to go. And so I start them a little bit later now.
okay.
I
Mhm.
start them, I probably was like the very end of April,
Okay,
and
cool.
I start them indoors, and I have a little like portable greenhouse with 4 shelves because I have cats, so I don't want the cats getting into them and everything. So and then just when it started to get like warm enough, I brought them out, and I have another one outside this little greenhouse thing, and I put them in there so then I could cover them at night when it's chilly. So this year I really babied them. Like last year I didn't have the time to baby them, and why I bought so many seeds this year was because I would I would fail. I mean, trying to start them was so difficult for me. I
Mm,
had to start 3 times last year,
mm,
and
mhm.
so I ended up buying from the Prismatic company too, the
Oh yeah, Grand Prismatic.
Grand Prismatic, because I was like, oh my god, I have no more seeds. What am I gonna do? And I you know I got more from them. I tried to keep them separate to see if there was a difference, but it didn't work out. Um, and so I did get a lot of seeds expecting to not be successful starting my seeds this year, and I was very successful. So now I did plant 250 clusters.
Excellent. I love
And I got
it.
108 more to plant. So I'm like, well, I'm thinking
Okay.
that I might do 3-inch pots and pot them and then put a notice out to my craft guild people to see if they want to pick up some and start, you know, do a small, like you do in the barrels, you
Yeah,
know, they could just do
absolutely.
that. Yeah. But I never really knew that until you showed that you know grow them in barrels and pots and things like that, you know. So
That's
now they're in
wonderful.
the ground. They're in the ground, and they're once they get in the ground. Last year when I planted them, they were so pitiful, and I can we can try this. Let's see if I can. Let me get rid of this. They I'm gonna share
Oh,
a
you can
screen.
do a little share screen. I think if
Yeah.
I make you a host, you can share screen. So that
Oh, okay.
I
Let's
can
see.
do that really easy. I'll make you, let's see, a co-host or host. Um,
Yeah, I can do a share. It shows it, the share
oh,
screen.
it will let you. Okay, great. Yeah, let's try it.
Okay.
You can share a
Let's
screen with
see.
us.
Let's see. Um, let's see how this works. Oh, wait. I'll slide
I
only.
love that you are gonna go ahead and
Oh, no, you have it disabled.
oh, it
Yeah,
is disabled.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's
Um,
okay.
I
We
can.
should have tried that before we started.
Yeah, we should have tested that before. You know what we can do though is you can put the pictures in the comments.
Okay, I can
Yeah,
do that.
we could
Because
put it in the
I
comments.
always wanted to show everybody how pitiful my plants
Oh,
were last year. And how when I planted them, like there was hardly anything to plant. And then like they just go gangbusters. Once they're in the
yeah.
soil, they they just like, oh, we're here, And I did find out, for anybody that's interested, that the soil, they like the soil to be about 65 degrees. So if the
Mm-hmm.
soil's too cold, they're not going to like it. They do like it kind of warm. So you need to really wait until it's pretty warm for you to plant them. And
Yeah.
I have the I have the seed to die book, and she talks about putting vitamin B in the soil, and things like that. I did use fish emulsion this year when I planted
Uh-huh.
them. That's the first time I ever did that, because I would just put them in the ground and they did fine. I
Will
never.
you hold that book up for everyone? So that's the Dorothy Miller's Indigo Seed to
Yeah, it's
Die.
backwards, right?
Yeah, if anyone's not familiar with that, I'll make sure and put it in our
I heard it's hard
resource.
to get though. I heard
Is
that
it?
it might not. Yeah, it might not be
Okay.
easy to get at this point. But I know this is the one that John Marshall, was his mentor.
His mentor, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so and I did read through it, and I use the little fish emulsion when I planted, but I don't fertilize, I don't compost, I don't do any of that. And I planted the same place every year. And I'm like, well, now they've expanded, there'll be new area. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a difference, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That will be really interesting to see. I hope you
yeah,
keep us posted on that.
I will. I'm gonna try to do my best to keep you guys.
And do you anticipate that you will do one harvest this year or multiple harvests?
I should be able to do two,
Uh-huh.
because well, it was a little bit warmer this spring, which was nice. I didn't, I planted maybe 2 weeks earlier than I did last year. Last year was really late, and I only got one harvest. But
Okay.
this year, and I've always traditionally had two. Um, the autumn seems to be warmer, so my growing season goes a little bit longer. This last year, my plants went to seed. So I did the John Marshall thing. If it's gonna have a frost, pull the plants out, pull them out, and just hang them upside down, which is what I did. I hung them out upside down in my basement by my furnace, so
Yeah.
they dried out. And I still have a whole bunch hanging. I
And so
never.
you were able to get seeds. Yeah.
I did get seeds, so I'm growing my own seeds this year also. So that's
That's
exciting.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
That is really exciting. And
Again,
when you,
I did separate them. I might try to see if there's the same amount of indigo in both of them, if I get the same blue. But yeah, I'm gonna, try that.
excellent. So when you do harvest, what are some of your, can you talk about some of your favorite methods? Because I know you work with a couple of different methods, and will you talk to us about right behind you, your beautiful pieces you have hanging?
So this past year, as I said, up until now, I've only used, as far as first leaf dyeing, I've only used the hydrox method.
Mhm.
And it's always been successful. It's always given me a good color. And I primarily dye silk scarves, and I bought these scarves at Dharma, because they have the jacquard pattern in it. And so it's sort of a rayon silk mix that gives you a beautiful pattern without any work. So, and I make little kimono jackets out of them. So, but this last year, because I had so little, and I really, after doing John Marshall's workshop down in Florida at I's Studio, he talked about doing the cold method with the blender. And that's why I was so interested in that whiz thing that you know, Iris rigged up. I loved it because it's like so pure. It's so pure. It's like but he was funny because he said, well, he freezes water in, what did he say, in vodka bottles or something, so that he keeps at the dye vat that you're doing with the cold water. He keeps the cold water really cold that way. So I said, well, why not just get those ice things? So I always have a couple of those ice, the ice packs in the freezer. So that's what I did. I blended up my leaves. I put them through, strained them through the cloth, and then I put the ice packs in the water in the vat with my silk, and it kept it really cold while I was swishing it around for 20 minutes because it's warm out in the summer, and it gets warm. So I got, I think you posted one of the pictures of my silk scarf from that beautiful turquoise that I got from it. It's the first time I ever tried it. I never washed it out the chlorophyll, so it was more green. But if you wash out the chlorophyll, you get that turquoise, and it's just so, just lovely,
And for anyone who doesn't know about the process or hasn't done the fresh leaf blender method, can you walk them through just a little bit of, harvesting just leaves, no stems, put them in the blender.
Right, just the leaves. And actually you were mentioning that you add the leaves slowly, but what I did was I just packed the leaves in there and then added the water and turned on and ice cold water. I don't think I used ice. The first time I ever did it, I used ice, and the ice can dilute it or something. So I used really ice water I took out of the freezer and used that. And I just poured that on top of the packed leaves, and I blended it up. And then I had a little basin. You can't do a lot at a time, which is, the thing. You're using a lot of leaves to get one silk scarf, maybe two.
Yes. Yeah. But, the reason I only do the most small amount at a time is my blender will overload. It will just break. It won't.
Oh, okay.
So that is something you have to be kind of conscious of. And the reason you're using ice or ice water or cold water, can you talk about the enzyme, or do you want me to talk about the enzyme?
You can talk about it. I know that it slows down it from degrading, right?
Yeah. So there's, to use John Marshall's terminology, he has a wonderful book called Singing the Blues. He talks about the beta-glucoside enzyme. So this is a sugar, basically, that's available. Yeah, there it is, Singing the Blues, in the fresh plant. So when you're growing the fresh plant, you have access to this enzyme. And this enzyme expires really quickly as soon as you start picking the plant, because the leaf is dying, just like a flower. When you pick it, as soon as you pick it, it starts to decay. So in order to kind of not completely stop, but try to delay that breakdown, the cold water really helps stabilize that enzyme so that we can use it quickly. Because what it does is it assists the indoxyl molecules in linking up, and we want them to bond to fiber, right? And if they link up too soon, they'll actually just link up to the leaf, and the leaf will start to turn from that bright neon green to that darker blue, right? You actually start to see the indigo chemical convert on the leaf itself. So if we can work quickly and use that kind of ice water or ice pack, which is ingenious, we can kind of slow it down. We can't stop it. It's oxygen. It's happening, but we can learn to kind of use it to our advantage. So that was a really great tip that John Marshall offers in
Right.
his book. And a
Yeah.
lot of people follow that method. There's some great blogs out there that are talking about that method too. There's some here in the announcements section in this group if you're curious too. So yeah,
And
so we're
Iris
using
explained it
that.
really well too. Iris explained how that whole thing works with the sugars and it connect. Last week I was like writing my notes.
Yes. Yeah, Iris Sylvander is episode number 7 if you want to
Yeah,
watch back.
yeah,
She talks
it's
about
great.
a very special blender that she's created to make this happen even faster, right?
And
Uh,
more of it too at a time, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot at a time, yes.
Mhm.
So tell us about your art behind you and how you're able to apply that to
Okay,
this
so
freshly.
again, I'm always want to do more than I end up doing. And last year, because I just signed up for John Marshall's virtual catazome class, so I'm really
Oh,
gonna do the real thing soon. But I ran out to Michael's and got some Martha Stewart stencils. And it's like, because he, again, in John Marshall's book, he has you roll up the leaves like a cigar, and you can like color with them. And I'm like,
like a
wow,
crayon.
like a crayon. This is like amazing. So I got my couple of stencils. I had a couple of pieces that I had dyed. This is like a raw silk. And I just played with it. It's like amazing the color that you get, and it's color fast. And this one's a little more blue. That one's a little more green. But I again, I did a lot of playing last year with just fresh things. I did try the salt method also.
Uh-huh.
The salt method I didn't get a difference in color particularly. They said it's going to come out a little darker, but it was pretty much the same for me. I didn't try re-dipping or redoing it over again, which might be, they say it will build up and get darker. What I didn't care for with the just mashing the leaves and the salt and with the silk scarf is that you end up with all these little particles of leaf stuck to your cloth. And you can't get it off. It's like I'm rinsing it and rinsing it. It's not coming off. I found it difficult. Maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. I don't know. So that's why I was preferring the blender method, because your vat is clear of all the actual leaf material when you're dyeing.
Yeah. So once you put it in the blender, you've got this pesto. You can strain it out. You can use your cheesecloth, right?
Yeah,
Or really anything.
that's a little too open. The one that,
okay.
That's a little too open. That mesh.
Or paint strainer bag mesh.
What I use like I don't know, a pillowcase, something. It's a piece of cloth I had, and it dyed beautifully while I was putting meshing through. I have like a piece. This might even be it. I don't know what this is. This one, but
so some incidental art. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you have this juice that you could then add more water to create a volume, a bath to dye your fiber in. Yeah, I think that's the advantage to that style is you can create volume. You could do the same thing with the salt. You could literally, strain the juice you're getting from it, and then add more volume of water, right? So you could go about it if you don't have a blender.
I will try this
year.
Yeah,
there's lots of options.
I was just reading this morning that John Marshall, he takes the leaves from the ice water and he'll mash them and make you can get color that way, just from the leftover leaves that you blended. So I didn't really know that. So I'm gonna try that too.
Excellent. Yeah, you can even go and vat it, right? You can go directly and
yes, he said you could add it to a vat. Yeah. So and so thanks to you, this year I'm gonna try, all these organic vats and see what happens.
Exciting.
It is. I have the time for let it be 2 or 3 days, and I'll just take my little greenhouse thing. If I need to keep it covered, if it's going to rain or something, I'll just take the shelves out and stick it in there, so it's in its own little covered house outside.
So will you do then a pigment extraction, an aqueous extraction?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't wait to try that. Yes, because then I'll have the actual pigment powder that I can use any other time.
Yeah, so exciting. Oh, you have a really wonderful year ahead, Bernadette. I'm really excited to hear about.
I feel like I'm not getting any artwork done, but I'm doing a whole lot of planting.
Well, there's art in that, right?
Right. Oh, what was I going to say? I don't know. I can't remember now.
Oh, I'm just so excited. I wanted to say about you, passing on the indigo to your fiber community, and just to see the ripple there of what happens.
Yeah.
And who else gets addicted to indigo? And
well, that's the one of the questions you ask people is, how did you, what hooked you, and I think it's pretty much the same for most people. Like when I did that first dye and I pulled the cloth out and watched it oxidize, I was like, oh, it just takes your breath away. It's just so magical. It's just like, I said, people have to know about this. So everywhere I go, and if I'm at an art gallery or I'm at a reception, and I always wear my indigo when I'm out, and I say, I grow indigo, and they go, you grow indigo? Like people just don't know. They just don't know. And I'm going, yeah, it's a plant that makes this color. And, so I when I retired, I wanted to do something that I felt contributed to society, because, all my life has just been making, cute little things that go out into, the Walmarts of the world. And and this is it. This is it for me. This is it, because there's nobody, there's very few people on Long Island even that know about this. And through one of my gardening Facebook groups, I met Melissa Clements, and she is the education director at the Smithtown Historical Society. And we were supposed to do a spring fair this year that I was going to do an indigo demo. And it didn't happen. So I'm really hoping that this might, what I want to do is teach or do demonstrations that show people, children. There's so much opportunity between libraries and summer camps when they're back, and, historical societies. The one in Huntington, where I live, has a Sheep to Shawl festival every spring in May. So that's a great opportunity to show that. And the Smithtown Historical, so they have a spinners group, and they're all interested in indigo. And so, I'm just like, I just wanted to spread, because I'm of a certain age, and I want all the young people to carry on once I get to a point that, I might not be able to do it anymore, especially planting 100 plants. But so that's my plan. Even schools, if I could get the chemistry under my belt, I'm already a guest lecturer. I already have my fingerprinted and everything. So I'm going to propose to some schools that either have art or even in the science and the chemistry department to do a demo.
That's wonderful. That's such a really inspiring goal to dedicate yourself to sharing what you've learned with your community, and especially kids. I think that's such a really wonderful place to start, because they have such inquisitive minds and ability to ask questions that we wouldn't, and experiment and play, because it is such a playful plant, right? It is so inviting. And just what you're talking about, rolling up a leaf and rubbing it,
That's
it's accessible.
Right. Yes. That's why I want to grow it. I do want to grow it at the Historical Society itself. I'm not sure. They're about 15 minutes from where I live. So, next year it's possible that I can grow some there. And then when we could do a harvest and dye day with the spinner group or whoever, and they can do the crayon thing, they can do, the blender thing. Everybody come with your blenders, under in a basin. And we'll get a ice and we'll be good, So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing those kinds of things.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really interested in integrating this into your community, and it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities to do that. While we're on the topic of, the Historical Society, I just love your idea to go and plant in public places so that it's an educational opportunity for people. I would love to hear we chat a little bit about some of the things that you've learned about indigo's history. You said you were working for your dissertation, which is what's news to me. I didn't know that you had done this project, Bernadette, and that you had studied and interviewed people and then gone ahead and written this children's book, which I'm very excited to see and learn about. Hopefully you'll link that for us.
I'll show it to you because I copyrighted it, but now, like I said, Polly has to become Percy now.
I feel like people still would appreciate it. I would definitely appreciate it. Yeah. Did you speak at all to just things you've learned from a historical indigo perspective?
What was really surprising, one of the really surprising things was in the 1600s, during the colonization, when Britain colonized India, it was pretty terrible what they did. But because indigo fera in India made such a much more beautiful blue than woad, so it was more desirable. And what the Brits did was pretty much they tricked the farmers into telling them if they, under torture and terrorist tactics, to stop growing food and grow indigo. And they did it, and then they were going to supposedly get, so much money for the indigo, and they never gave them anything. And and that's when there was the whole indigo uprising with Gandhi. So it's and the woad growers in England protested the import of the Indian indigo because they were going out of business. So it was sort of like this globalization thing that kind of goes on now, but it's, was actually happening then. So I found that to be really, really interesting. I had no idea. And one of the other things that I thought was interesting, because mainly because I grow Japanese indigo, that's really what I'm interested in. So I did a little bit of the history with Japanese indigo. And also when in Japan, when they were under military rule, they had sumptuary laws in Japan. So sumptuary laws mean that it was sort of like a caste system. If you were in the higher echelons, you could wear silk and you could wear reds and golds and all kinds of colors. But if you were poor and in the lower class, you were limited to wearing indigo. So, and indigo was chosen because it did have antibacterial properties and protective against insects and whatever. So you had a lot of the fishermen, the farmers, and so the boro, we kind of romanticize the boro right now. It's sort of like, oh, boro, and even like in my forecast services when I was working in, we had forecast services, WGSN actually, and they were getting on the boro wagon because they were talking about the era of less is more, you know, that we're going to do with less. And they were predicting that last year before all this hit. And so, yeah, and they're talking about patching things and doing stitching and all of that. And so the borough, and then they had a beautiful exhibit, which I couldn't see, that I posted, shared on your group, the Japan Society had. But it was out of necessity. It wasn't romantic. I mean, they had to patch pieces of cloth together to have something to wear, you know? So, but then, you know, I also read that the merchant class was considered, you know, a lower class, but they had more money because they were merchants. So that's where the shibori techniques, the karazome, you know, all those techniques of decorating on the indigo came about, because they could employ artisans to make their indigo fabric more fancy.
Right.
And,
okay.
Yeah. And I didn't know that. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Could you point us to any resources about what you're, you know, just the few?
I pretty much looked them all up on the internet, I believe.
Yeah, the internet is a wonderful place.
Yeah, I pretty much, you know, did my research on the internet, and this is for a talk, so I don't have a bibliography for that, you know.
Sure.
I just have, like, you know, when I gave the presentation, I wanted to give a little historical background, and I thought.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I've already learned some things from just hearing you learn.
Yeah,
that's what we're here to do, is to learn together and to share together. I think it's so important that you mentioned you know, those histories, because indigo has a history here in the U.S. That is very important. We've been talking about it in the group, especially in this particular moment in time where we are in history. Iris and I talked about this last episode. You know, when people watch these back at a later moment and remembering what 2020 was about, it is really important to acknowledge the oppression and the continued racism in our country, and the connection between indigo and especially West African enslaved people here. And then also recognize there's a history way before that, a beautiful history of connection to indigo. And Abubakar Fofana recently did a little beautiful presentation on botanical colors, which we've also been linking as well. So if you're interested.
I know, I have to watch that still. I didn't watch it yet.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I'll recommend it. I'll just put it in the resources again. We've posted it a couple of times here in the group, but I'm really interested in learning more about it myself. So thanks for sharing that.
There's another person. I don't know if she's a member of the group, but Carol Jones. I don't know if you know about her. She's an Indigenous person, and she wrote this book, The Spiritual Journey. It's beautiful, and her patterns, her indigo patterns. She lives in South Carolina. She's one of the Indigenous on the islands off the South Carolina, and her patterns they all have names. They're all, you know, they're named patterns that they do. These huge pieces of cloth, and then they use them for ceremonial dances and such. And it's a nice book. It's a really nice little book.
Can you read me the author's name again?
Carola, Carola Jones.
Okay. Thank you. I have not seen that. I'm going to post that as well for everyone.
She's wonderful, and she talks about how her mother taught her the patterns, and you know, it's a beautiful little self-published book. You probably, if you look her up on Facebook, you can probably connect with her, and
okay.
And I'm sure she'd be thrilled to sell some more of these.
Excellent. I'm really glad you told me about that. I want to look into it.
Yeah.
So I love that you've just naturally answered some of my questions just about community and how indigo really has affected you, what you've learned about just the history of indigo, and how you'd like to share that with people in your community. So connecting the plant with its important history, like you said, you've come to all these realizations personally about things you didn't know before. We were talking about learning so much during this time period, and how this group is really about learning together and sharing together, and staying in that mode and never leaving that mode. Could never possibly learn it all. But I'd love to hear, you mentioned some of the people who really affected you and that you've learned from. Is there anyone else that you could recommend? Any teachers? Any?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm growing Japanese indigo, and there's a whole issue about appropriation in art, that you're taking somebody else's culture and you're pretending to be that in a way, and you're really not, and using that in your art. So what I love about Roland Ricketts is that he's so traditional in his growing method, because he did live there. He lived in Japan. He worked on the farms. He understands it so well. He's so humble, first of all, but but his artwork has almost nothing to do with the actual traditional, shibori or whatever. He creates these immersion, total immersion pieces that you're feeling like you're walking into the indigo itself. And even the piece he had in San Francisco with the felt, squares. I mean, it's so American, so contemporary. It's a Japanese flavor, but it's like he's not taking the Japanese, tradition and saying it's mine. And that's something that when I did my piece for the Craft Guild show last year called Empty Echoes, I posted it, but we can post it again. I did a shibori just like as a circle, technique, but I was very influenced by Roland Ricketts with doing that piece, because just using simple geometric, a square with a circle cut out and then layering it, so you kind of get a little bit of like you're delving into it, and it was funny. My funny story with that is I was doing 4 sheets of chiffon. I bought chiffon scarves, square ones that ended up getting a little warped in the process, but and I had no idea. I mean, I knew exactly my vision, but I didn't know how I was going to do this. So step by step, it was very technical. And so I had to hang it on a frame, and I didn't know how to do that. So I ended up using hat pins, blank hat pins that I ended up getting on Etsy that I beaded, and so I could separate each sheet. And then I had a wooden, frame that I got the frame pieces that you stretch canvas on, and put that together. And that had dyed some yarn the year before. So I was like, I don't know. So I wrapped the frame with the yarn, and luckily I'm going to run out of yarn before I get to the end. But luckily I didn't. So it's funny how, you just sort of, it comes together,
Yeah.
you hope. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you'll post those so we can see those.
Yeah,
too.
I'll post that. It's on my Instagram. And again, it's another thing. I don't have a website yet. I don't know who I am yet. I'm trying to decide that. It's like at first I was like, should I do one website for my graphic design and another one for my indigo? Should it all be one? But kind of like moving away from the graphic design, always be a part of me, but I really think at this point in my life, it's all about indigo. So you know, whether it's going to be indigo art and fashion or art design indigo, you know, I don't know, but once I figure it out, I'll put a website. But in the meantime, I post nothing but my indigo journey on Instagram. I don't want to, you know, because when I first started Instagram, I didn't know you could do different ones and have different, you know, so it's all under Bernadette.Puleo in Instagram, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
I link that as well if people are curious and they want to follow you there too.
yeah.
I wanted to ask just also back to your garden. Are you growing any other dye plants, or is it
No.
just mainly dedicated to indigo this
All
year?
indigo.
All indigo.
I
You're going
can't.
all in on indigo.
I mean, the marigolds
Yep.
look interesting, and I talked about maybe growing woad, but you know what? No, I'm gonna just stick to the indigo at this point. And you know, it was interesting when we saw Michel Garcia and he did all these plants with, you know, the beautiful colors that he got, you know, using no, not using mordants, you know, and I forget the name of the plant that he used as a mordant now. It's been a while, but
He has a DVD series called
yeah.
Beyond Mordants.
Yes,
Right?
I have that. Yeah.
Yeah, if people are curious, there's a series of DVDs that he has for sale called Beyond Mordanting or Beyond Mordants. Yeah, where he's utilizing the plants, which are basically collecting aluminum, right?
Right. That was so interesting. Yeah.
Soil accumulators. Yeah, very interesting. And tannins. Yeah, using those in combination.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm really excited to hear that you are really like dedicating yourself to indigo this year in all ways, both planting.
This is it.
Like
As long as I have it,
in.
as long as I'm blessed with this land, you know, things could change and then I'd have to seek out. But then again, I think there's places I can plant. Like I said, the Historical Society has an area. There's also a center, a nature center. We have our own ranger on Long Island. His name is Eric Powers, and he has a place a little farther from me, but he's all about nature and art and all of that. So it's another proposal I'm going to make to do a dye workshop with him at his place.
You're just sprinkling indigo seeds everywhere.
I'm going to spread them around. Spread them around. You know, I just want everybody to know this. It's like I have, it's just so amazing, especially kids today that are so separated from nature, you know, in so many ways. You know, they don't realize that the natural world just holds so many secrets. And, you know, which is, okay, this my book is
yes, will you show us?
It's Polly's Little Green Leaves.
Oh, I love it.
Her name is Polly, and it's her secret, you know. So she yeah. So she, and then I talk about the different indigos around the world.
Wonderful, Bernadette.
They're all cousins. And then, so what makes us so special? You know, the big question mark is like, oh, what is this question? And then they'll just follow me. And then I just start with the seed, the actual size of the seed, you know, I get planted. And so I go through that whole process that it's rain, you know, watering and then you and then put it outside and then you cut it, gets so big, then it gets cut, it gets cut. There's, don't worry, I'll grow back. And that's another thing I just found out, that the stems, you can root the stems root so easily. You can make even more plants.
More plants to give away.
I know. I was like, well, you know what? I used to take the stems and just lay them down on my indigo bed. And I started to see that. They were like rooting.
Oh, interesting.
So now I'm going to actually do that, you know. So at the end of the story, I have a little, like when you put it in the dye bath and you take it out, I did a little window. So it goes from yellow and then it goes to green and then it goes to blue.
Oh, this is so wonderful, Bernadette.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to have to change her name. And now like the whole thing, I showed it to John Marshall and he's like, yeah, but I don't know. I might have to like just revamp the whole thing because I don't really want to use the hydrox vat method now anymore in my, I want to use it. It would even be more fun with the kids if I do like the fruit toast or something with the fruits and, so that'd be even more fun. So I'm going to have to rewrite it and reformat it so I can self-publish it. So that's a winter project.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I'm really excited. As a mother of a 5-year-old daughter, she would be very excited about this story. I love that you presented it in such a just such a vibrant way.
It's anthropomorphic. When the little plant itself becomes the character, and
yeah. And I think we all, as adults, I could be speaking for myself, but I learned so much from children's literature. I love the simplistic way of presenting things. There's that famous saying, if you can't explain it simply, maybe you don't know it well enough yourself. So when you can explain it so simply and offer it in a really accessible way to children, it basically means you're able to disseminate the information to everyone. Like it's for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Well, I tested it out on a couple of kids and they liked it. So I was really nervous. I was like more nervous about showing it to the kids than I was to the adults.
They'll tell you the truth. They will tell you. Or they'll just say, tune out. If they
got bored after the first 3 pages, like, oh no.
Well, that's wonderful. I hope that you'll feel free to test us out for any of your future publications. We would love to look at them and read them. Me personally, I will volunteer to be a guinea pig for
give me a year.
Hopefully some story time, maybe an indigo story time video here would be really wonderful. No pressure.
No pressure.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really special. I already learned so much about you just today. So if we want to end with just any other little indigo stories or anything that you want to share with us, or tell people about how they can get in touch with you, maybe if they're in Long Island and they want to connect over plants.
Well, you can always connect with me on Facebook and on Instagram. And what I want to say is that to people just starting out and growing it, that don't be afraid. Just, if the plant doesn't even look that good when you go put it in the soil, just put it in the soil anyway. It's very forgiving once it gets going. And, I really had a lot of trials starting it from seed, and it just performs so beautifully for you if you, get it in the ground and it's nice and warm. And we have great temperature here for it. It gets pretty hot and humid here. And as long as I keep it watered, which is, again, this year, I did keep them more watered. I think my problem last year was I didn't keep them watered enough. So because the stem actually dried out, and then it was alive here. So the root was alive. The stem was totally like a thread, and then it was alive. The plant was alive. So I have a feeling that it wasn't enough water, that I didn't give them enough water,
Yeah, they are really thirsty plants, but that's such a great point. Yeah. They're so generous, so adaptive.
But they like to drink. They like their water. Yeah. And that's what I have to tell people. If you, find a few people, because, the seeds are really tiny and you get a lot. And so you might not want to plant that many. So you might want to share seeds with somebody. I mean, I do send seeds to people that ask me if I have extra seeds. I'll send them to a couple of people. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Oh, that's very nice. So if you are in the Long Island, New York area, definitely get in touch with Bernadette. Or if you need seeds, it sounds like you have some. That's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us. I want to check in. There were a few, actually, there's quite a few comments and people checking in and people saying hi. I'll let you peruse the comments later. Deb wants to know, can we buy the Polly story online right now?
No.
I know you're talking about revamping it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's not currently for sale.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I started reformatting it to
Okay.
self-publish it, but now with the whole change of name and
Sure.
yeah. So
Well,
yeah.
people really enjoyed it in its
Oh,
current
good.
form, and I did too. So thank you for sharing it, and also do keep us posted when you do have your second edition.
Right,
Re-
second
yeah,
edition. Right, yeah,
the second edition.
got it.
Let's see. A lot of people just saying hello and how good it is to see you. I'm gonna click on the video. Sometimes the audio starts and it interrupts us. So give me just a minute to turn the volume down. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, everyone is saying hello. Elizabeth Merrill, a friend from when just people who are connected to Elizabeth Merrill and how amazing she is. Deb wants to tell you, when you go to do your extraction this year, getting your pigment, paint mixers, paint strainers, there's a Dudas, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's DUDAS.
Okay.
Oil filter actually is what it's used for. Typically, it's an industrial filter, but Dudas is the name, the company you can look up, and they have all sizes. So if you're looking for filters for your future extraction,
Okay.
I use one too. It works really well. And I know Deb's been using it too.
Her blog is amazing.
Yes, she's so. And you're located just I think I said it again, but you're in Long Island.
Long Island. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so Deb was asking, where are you? What growing zone is that?
7B.
7B. Okay.
A little bit later than you, so that's why,
Oh yeah. So you were mentioning the vodka bottle. He's basically using that as an ice pack, is what she
right.
said.
He was. He was great. Oh, and before we go, the Suzanne Connors down at Aya Studios in Florida is fantastic.
Suzanne Connors.
Suzanne Connors. She
And
runs.
what's the studio?
AYA.
AYA.
Yeah, Fiber Studio.
I think I have heard of this.
Yes, she's wonderful, and that's where I went to the John Marshall workshop, which was totally amazing.
Someone was saying that she might host another one next year. Is that?
I think Deb was going to do, Jarek was going to do the Sukumo next year down there.
Down there. Okay. Yeah. So if people are curious, I'll post this link also.
Yeah.
For hopefully a 2021 meetup.
But she's heavy into indigo. She does a lot of other types of fiber workshops, but she's pretty heavy into indigo down there. And the workshop with John Marshall was really fabulous. And he was so generous. I know we're going over, but so generous. He brought, I don't know, he must have shipped so much stuff of his to this workshop. I mean, all the materials that he brought, and we did the pigments. One of the pictures you showed was the two loons, that I did with the actual color pigment and indigo. Yeah. He brought all the pigments with him for us to try. And then he brought his collection of all the swatches of kimono swatches and some of his amazing pieces that he's done. Like, he's such a generous person. I would love to do his workshop in California, but it's a little difficult. But yeah.
And the two, if I'm correct, are the two mallard ducks or the two water ducks?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a piece you did in that class, right?
I did that in his class. He brought the Catazome stencils, and we were able to use his stencils, which was really nice of him.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And then Deb also chimed in, Deborah, that it was the horsetail. Michelle Garcia has been using. Horsetail is a really great bioaccumulator of aluminum. So using that plant mordant source was one of many. There's many. I know, like camellia and sunflower and hydrangea. horsetail are all really great bioaccumulators that can be used in the Beyond Mordance. Back to referencing the Beyond Mordance class.
And the other thing, I'll keep going on. There's huge oyster fishing on Long Island.
Yes.
So with you talking about using oyster shells, and then my potter friends that have kilns, so I'm gonna work on that.
Yes, that's exciting. That's a really great source or connection to bring two worlds together, cross-pollinate the ceramic world and the indigo world. If people aren't familiar with why you would use oyster shells, it'll in its raw form, it's calcium carbonate, but you can thermally decompose them easily in a kiln. You can build an outside kiln. It's a lot more work, but it is possible, and people have done it for centuries. But if you have a local potter friend, if you have a local ceramicist that you can collaborate with, you can give them oyster shells to heat up. I think the tipping point is 950 degrees Celsius. So we usually just go all the way to 1,000 just to make sure. And you'll know because it'll be crumbly at that point. The lime will literally just crumble, or the shells will crumble. You could crush them with your hand. They're soft. Then convert in the kiln to calcium oxide. And then you hydrate them, adding water. And now you have calcium hydroxide. You have lime. And that can be used in your vat, which is so cool. Yeah, we live on, we're coast to coast people. I'm on the Oregon coast and you're on the New York coast. And we both have this oyster shell product, this byproduct, this sea trash really that's littering our beaches. Yeah, so it's wonderful to be able to take that and use it. Yeah, that'll be really exciting. Okay, I'm gonna just check in on any of the other questions that we have here. Just a lot of really people saying hello, and they're excited about learning more from you and seeing your book in the future. People are really curious about that. So thank you again, Bernadette. I just want to express my gratitude for you being willing to share your story with us. Thanks for being.
I appreciate it.
And thanks for sharing in the group and being a really wonderful participant there as well.
I have a lot to learn, so I'll be with you
guys. Keep us posted on your journey this year.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to say goodbye, and thank you so much to everyone who joined us and who commented and had questions. Bernadette will go and look at the comments also, and she can interact with y'all. I will put together a resource list, and I will go ahead and put this up in the Blue Bios album. I'm a little bit behind on my episodes, but they all are in the group. So bear with me as I collect them all. I like to put the main image along with a link to this recorded video that you'll be able to watch afterwards. And then also I like to put a little resource list from Bernadette and the things that she's learned from, people she's learned from, books, etc. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week for another episode live here in the group every Monday. Usually it's 10 a.m., but you can check the list of people who I will be interviewing in a link here as well. So thanks again, Bernadette.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. All right.